What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to do a care guide on potato puffers, also known as Congo puffers, and their scientific name is Tetraodon murius. This video is way overdue, so let's just get straight into it. This right here is Tater. She is my female potato puffer, and I keep her in a 40-gallon breeder tank. The reason I keep her in a 40-gallon breeder tank is I think it's the minimum tank size that they need, but also I like it more than a normal 40-gallon tank. A normal 40-gallon tank is taller and also less deep front to back than a 40-gallon breeder tank. And the breeder tank just gives you a bigger footprint, which I think is important because they're an ambush puffer and they like to burrow into the sand. So they need lots of surface area to dig in the sand, do their thing, and all that. And they're not that active, so they don't swim a whole lot. So the tallness of a tank is not that important. It's more about the footprint it has and how much room it has to exhibit its natural behavior, which is burrowing into the sand. When I first got Tater, I did keep her in a 20-gallon tank, which I soonly realized that was not really the correct thing to do, but it did give me a chance to fix her hole in the head, which she had. And I'll talk about that later in the video. But if you're going to do like a quarantine tank or something, smaller is fine. You're only going to keep it in there for the duration of deworming puffers, and I'll get into that later as well. But I wouldn't keep it in anything smaller. You're not going to keep up with the water changes, and they don't have enough space to burrow in the sand. Tank mates. Potato puffers are piscivores, so they mainly eat fish in the wild, but they also eat other insects or mollusks, anything that, you know, they have an opportunity of eating. But because they do eat fish, there's not much you can keep with them unless it's intended to be food. So I wouldn't keep anything in a tank. Anything that's larger than them will get probably a chunk taken out of them, and anything smaller than will probably, you know, get swallowed whole by them. Now, there's one thing you can do, at least what I do, is I keep some ram's horn snails in the tank. Typically just the babies survive and kind of, you know, move around. And as soon as they get a little bit larger, Tater picks them off. I just see it as like she gets a couple snacks here and there, and she gets to like hunt in her natural behavior. But it's not like I'm really keeping snails in there. Just the tiny little babies from the larger ones laying eggs survive, and you see those crawling around, but anything bigger immediately gets picked off by her. Filtration. I'm going to keep this one short because you can just talk about filters forever. But a couple of things that I think are very important is to overfilter. They're messy eaters and they poop a lot. So just being able to collect up all the debris and stuff is very important. And therefore, I like to use a canister filter. I have a Fluval 307 on our tank right now, and I think that's ideal. It has a decent output for a 40-gallon breeder. A 407 also would work, or any of the older models, which is like 654 at the end. The first number of a Fluval canister is the size of it, but a 307 is good. You want to move the outlet of the filter like right at the water surface. They create a lot of agitation, which is also very important for oxygenation in the water. There's other ways you can do that too. You can use air bubblers for that. You can use water pumps, which I have a little Fluval water pump also pointing at the surface. And then I also have a surface skimmer. So there's definitely like enough movement at the water surface. I think that's one really important thing. And second was that making sure that it's over filtered to catch all those small debris. Now, it doesn't mean you have to keep a canister filter. There's different ways you can filter stuff. You can do sponge filters. Now, I don't think that's really ideal just because of how many debris there are. Some of it's going to be sucked up by the sponge filter, sure, but it just doesn't have a lot of mechanical filtration as like a canister filter or a hang on the back would have. I just prefer canister filters for that reason. I think they're nice. You can take them out, clean them, put them back. They have high flow. They're underneath, so it keeps the tank clean, aesthetically pleasing. A lot of people like to obsess about, you know, water parameters. I mean, obviously nitrates you want to keep low. You don't want to have any ammonia, no nitrites, but I'm mostly talking about pH. Now, what I think is important is just to keep it steady. I wouldn't try to chase pH levels or anything like that. I just use tap water, use a dechlorinator, and that way it's always the same. So as long as you can keep it steady and it's not like an extreme up or down on the pH level, then you should be fine. Water temperature is a pretty straightforward one, between 24 to 28 Celsius or 75 Fahrenheit to 82 Fahrenheit. I kind of do the middle of that, so 26 Celsius or 78 Fahrenheit. You don't want to go too high and you don't want to go too low. Just try to keep it somewhere in that range. One thing you don't really need per se is plants, but I always love plants. I put plants in all of my tanks if I can. They help with soaking up nitrates. They create natural cover. It just makes the tank look, a lot better. But you don't have to go crazy. I mean, it is going to have a fixed sand bed in this tank. So anything that will grow easily in there, I have like Amazon sorts in there, Anubias. You can also do like Java ferns, mosses. Just any easier plant is going to be totally fine. And that will help a lot soak up the nitrates. Like I said, it's just like a natural filter and will help you maintain good water quality. Now, another thing I also like to do is immerse plants. As you can see right here, I have like a gigantic jungle growing out of our tank, and there's all these roots inside of our tank. I have pajos, there's like this palmy plant, Monstera Swiss cheese, and some lucky bamboo, and they grow even faster than aquarium plants because they have access to a lot more CO2. So they soak up even more nitrates than plants that stay in the water. So I think they help a lot. They soak up a ton of nitrates and also makes the room look a lot better. Sand is a important one. You definitely want to have a deep bed because they want to dig themselves, and they're not the skinniest fish. I mean, they're kind of chunky. So 2 inches or more at minimum. I mean, you can kind of tell if they can burrow themselves completely and just have their eyes and nose poking out like you're seeing on screen right now, you have plenty of sand. If they can't burrow all the way like you're seeing right now on screen, then you might need more sand. Now, they do push sand around in a tank, as you can see right here. So sometimes you have to like move the sand back a little bit, but 2 inches should be fine. You might need a little bit more, but typically not less. Another very important thing is how coarse the sand is. You want to have a fine sand, but there's a lot of sands that they advertise as sand, but they're really, in my opinion, not really sand anymore. And they're going to be like more coarse, like a gravel, like sandblasting media that you can find like Tractor Supply. I think it's way too coarse. I actually tried it once because I wanted to have black sand and couldn't find anything finer. I bought about every single black sand I could find on Amazon, and they were all too coarse. There's plenty of lighter colored sands that are fine, but potato puffers like to kind of blend in with their environment, so they can change colors. They can go from like beige to like a deeper red or orange. And I actually kept Tater on white sand before, and she became very pale eventually. So I kind of preferred her having the orange color, so I went with a darker sand. Now there is this sand that I really like, and that's what's in our tank right now. It's called Zanzibar Dark. It's made by JBL, which is a German company. Now the only thing is I cannot find it here in the US. Now I used to live in Belgium in Europe, and you can find it everywhere there. So I actually had somebody ship over multiple bags for me just so I can have this sand over here. So you might have to stick with a lighter colored sand, but you want something fine they can easily dig into and not something that, has sharp edges and can poke them. I'll put a couple examples right now on the screen of sands that will work and sands that I think are personally too coarse. And then here's the JBL Zanzibar Dark that I prefer the most. Now let's talk about food. I think this is kind of where it comes down, where puffers are typically not very beginner friendly just because they're a lot more pickier and they need more freshly frozen food, and you cannot just feed them pellets of flakes. So if you've never kept a fish before, I don't really recommend going with a puffer first. I would start with something simpler, like maybe start with shrimp or smaller fish. But let's get right into it with the food. So common foods that I feed Tater are dubia roaches, earthworms, crickets, not so much anymore, and grasshoppers, but they are a good food source. I just find it easier to have dubia roaches for having my own tank and breeding them. It's a lot easier than doing that with crickets. Crickets are smelly, they chirp, and they're escape artists, and dubia roaches are none of those. So that's why I prefer dubia roaches, but crickets and grasshoppers are totally fine. You can keep them frozen too if you just want to, give them one every once in a while, just thaw it out first. Snails are a big diet of Tater as well. So ram's horn snails. I'm trying to kind of breed apple snails and stuff, not having that much success with it. But like a medium-sized apple snail or mystery snail would work as well. Adults are going to be too large, but anything, small, baby size to like medium size is going to be fine. And then adult ram's horns are also fine. Not all potato puffers like to eat snails, but mine does. A couple other things that are good for them are freshwater shrimp, crawfish, freshwater crabs. You can do live fish as well if you want to do live feedings. I would stay away from certain fish though, like feeder fish or goldfish. I'll talk about that in a second, but they're high in Thiaminase and typically not the healthiest fish, just because of how, the fish industry works. Other fish you can do, if you want to do frozen fish, you can do like tilapia, or Aquarium makes these silver sites that are pretty good. Tater doesn't eat them, but my other pufferfish loves them, so I still buy them. But Tater just does not accept frozen fish for whatever reason. And that's kind of just a reality with puffers. So certain puffers will eat something, but the other one will not. And that's why they're always kind of like picky eaters and can be troublesome sometimes. Tater, for the most part, is a good eater, but she does sometimes, you know, throw a hunger strike for a month and doesn't eat. It's just how it goes sometimes. So Thiaminase, that's kind of like where majority of these food choices come from. Thiaminase is an enzyme that destroys thiamine, which is vitamin B1, and vitamin B1 plays an essential role in the nervous system. I'll put a link in the description with more information about this, and they also list certain, you know, foods that are good and bad. But some things that are bad and are high in Thiaminase, and I would not feed very often. You can do like every once in a while, that's okay, but I wouldn't make that a staple diet at all. Are shrimp, tuna, clams, scallops, mussels. Some alternatives you can do is like for shrimp, you can do like freshwater shrimp, for example. Tuna, you could do like tilapia. Clam, you can do cockle. Some people say that you don't or you shouldn't do that, but cockles are low in thiamine. I have success with it. I don't see any issues with feeding that. Gilbert loves them, which is my topaz puffer, but that's a more brackish saltwater puffer, so it's a more natural food for them versus Tater is a freshwater puffer. But I do think it's a good food source. Scallops you don't want, but again, cockle would be a meaty shellfish that you can do, and same for mussels. So pufferfish have basically 4 teeth, but the top 2 teeth and the bottom 2 teeth are kind of fused together, and they kind of resemble a beak of like a, let's say, a parrot or something like that. And that's how they kind of crush their prey and can bite through things, and they're pretty powerful. Now, they grow very slowly, so they do have to be trimmed. Now, potato puffers do have like one of the slower growing beaks that I've witnessed, so you're not, you know, having upkeep it too much versus like a green spot puffer or a Amazon puffer that are where I see people trimming their beaks all the time online. You typically don't have to do that, but you do have to feed them foods to keep it trimmed a bit. So that's where the snails come into place. Dubia roaches like crickets and stuff like that also help. If you're feeding fish that do have like still like a bone structure inside of them, that would help too, because that has like a hardy, you know, fish bones inside of it. That would help as well. But you just want to feed them hard foods from time to time just to help trim their beak down. Just want to talk about vitamins just a little bit. I don't think it's really going to be necessary for everybody, but I personally do dose vitamins. And in my case, I use MicroLift. It is a sponsor for my channel, and it's not the reason why I use them. I used them way before they were a sponsor, probably about 2.5 years before they even became a sponsor. And I do stand by their product. So when I first got Tater, she had what I believe is hole-in-the-wall disease. Now, if it is not, please let me know in the comments, but this is what I've always believed it was. And I've tried medications, and it kind of stopped it from growing larger, but it never healed or anything. So I did 2 treatments. It stopped growing bigger, but it was not shrinking and healing up. Until I used vitamins, and I used some catappa leaves for antibacterial reasons, and it healed up so quick. And one of the things I learned from researching online, and this is mostly with Oscars, I guess, and stuff like that, that are more common to hole in the head disease, is it could be a lack of minerals. So that was kind of where I got the idea from using vitamins, and it seemed to work. So I just keep dosing it every once in a while. I don't keep a routine or anything, but every other water change or something, I'll add some vitamins to the water. And Tater has always been healthy ever since, so why not keep doing it? And I think she's getting all the nutrition she is getting, and it makes for a happy, healthy potato. I want to talk real quick about sexing potato puffers and breeding them. It's not really known, at least as far as I know, nobody's captive bred them, so I don't think it's really a thing. They're very aggressive. You know, I've seen somebody online keeping 2 of them, and he mentioned that 2 of them got killed by the other potato puffer just because of how aggressive they are. So it's not something I would do. Just keep 1 solo potato puffer. Sexing is also hard. There's no real way to tell from the outside if it's a female or a male, but I think I do have some theories on what it is. I think females do get larger since Tater is on the, closer to 8 inches. And they say most potato puffers get up to like 6.5. And most of them that I see online seem to be more towards that size. And tater is just a big chonker. And I think there's just more males, ratio than there is females. But I could be wrong on that. It's just a very... And then I think females are a little bit wider at the jaw than males do. Just observations I have, but I've never seen another potato puffer in real life besides tater. So the last thing I want to talk about before we end the video is deworming puffers. Most puffers are wild caught and not captive bred, and tater, for example, is going to be one of them. Gilbert's also wild caught, and they're very prone to having internal parasites. So I use Prazipro. There's other brands and medications that do the same thing. I just have this available in my area, so this is what I use. And I do typically 2 treatments with a week break in between the 2 treatments. I just follow directions on the bottle. So whatever brand you get, just follow directions, and then a week later, do another round of it, and make sure you do like a big water change in between. Another thing you want to make sure of is that you remove any carbon from your filter. Carbon will absorb any of the medication and kind of render it useless. So you want to make sure there's no carbon in any of your filters. And yeah, after 2 treatments, your puffer should be parasite free and be healthy. Now, if there's other things that you see, in the first 4-6 weeks, treat for that as well. Certain things are going to be more dangerous for them, so maybe treat that first before you deworm them. But if they look healthy from the outside, just do a dewormer and should be good to go. If you have any more questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer them all. And if you've made it this far, please give me a like and a subscribe. I'm going to be making more videos here soon, so if you subscribe, you'll get notified of that. We got some unboxing videos. I'm going to make an updated Gilbert care guide and one for the pea puffers as well. And I also have another project coming with Gilbert's tank here soon, so I'll be documenting that as well. Thanks for watching.